All right, hello. Hey, we are on Founders Live here, and this is the Founders Rock, and I'm here with Glenn Torson, and he's over there in London. How you doing, Glenn?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Nick. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. Doing really well. Hey, this is the first show here at a new series that we're starting called the Founders Rock, and it's really a collaboration between Founders Live and Rocketeer. And Glenn here actually living over in the UK. He is newly member of the Rocketeer group, and would love for you to just start out and at least tell us a little bit about what you guys do and what you're all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Rocketeer is all about, as our tagline says, transcending awesome. So, being the best version of yourself, enabling your business, your team, your ecosystem, your community, whoever that is, to be the absolute best version, best iteration of who it is that they want to be, and really just always pushing those boundaries and challenging yourself to do everything that you can do as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's out there being innovative, doing anything that we can do in today's business world.
That's awesome. And so when is it more of is it like a collection of individuals? Like how is the group made up?
So the core of Rocketeer is the seven of us, basically, the core crew. And then we've got a wider sort of partner network, so to speak. So we've got a few sort of core partners that would almost expand on the seven core crew members. But then at a wider sense, there's, what do we know? There's 22 of us that basically will be involved and engage as actively or passively on any projects that we're involved in. So obviously the core sort of delivery and management of all our engagements and our projects is driven by the seven of us that are here every day doing everything that we do. But then when it comes to specific elements of whatever challenges that we're involving ourselves with, we will just pull in those other delivery partners, the other crew members as we call them, and leverage all the expertise that we have across the board for everyone that we work with.
That's great. That's great. So how can people find you real quick?
So, I mean, we try to be everywhere. We're doing a pretty good job with the recent sort of expansion that we had, myself being part of that. We're now sort of active, present in three continents. So that's been the US, obviously in Las Vegas, where everything started, in London, in the UK, and obviously an easy jump around into Europe. And then we've also got a couple of people in Australia as well, in Sydney and
That's
Gold
awesome.
Coast.
That's awesome. And so the URL to find more information would be what?
So that is rocketeer.com,
Right.
ROCEER.com.
Cool. Cool. Well, today, so we're going to kick this off. Basically, this series is a number of different conversations on specific topics foundational to entrepreneurs. And clearly, there's so many things that are a part of as you are a founder and an entrepreneur going out on your own, building a team, building a business. You encounter many different challenging issues. And what I love about your organization is you guys really on the site you just nail it down and say these are like the 30 different things that we will help you with, and we're actually over time going to go through all that. So today we're actually talking about emotions. I thought that was an interesting one to jump into this series with. Every founder deals with crazy emotions as they build their company. Could be exhilaration, it could be absolute fear. And I really want to just start out with when what is from the Rocketeer point of view when the organization says we will help you in the area of emotions, like what does that initially even mean? Like what is the general perspective on how a founder can keep emotions in check?
So it's an interesting one actually, and it's always funny to hear how people sort of perceive that area as well, because people see emotion. I would personally see it in two different variants. So you've got the emotion of the individual, being the founder, being you, being me, whoever that may be. But then you've also got the emotion of the business, of the idea, of the organization that you're trying to build. And those are two very different things. They can have very different impacts, but you need to be not just aware, but also you need to respect the value that they both have. So on the one hand, you know, the emotion of the individual, that's everything that you go through. And especially with what we're talking about as a founder, as you say, you know, you go through so many emotions because you've got everything right there on your sleeve. You're trying to build a business. You're trying to, for a lot of people, build a way of life, potentially support other people because you're providing them with a place to work, you're providing them with an income. And there's a lot of different emotions that come with that. But from the other side, and I think this is where when you start to look at it from some of the challenges that we see, this is where it gets really interesting, which is that emotion in the business of the organization. Because traditionally, it's always been one of those, for lack of a better term, taboo topics. I mean, don't bring emotion to the office. You know, it's weak, or again, a really, really bad way of framing it, but that's historically the way it's been. It's feminine and it's not successful. All those sort of cliches that just aren't correct when you really start to peel it back and look at things. Emotion is, at the end of the day, it's one of the strongest things that you can have in your business once you understand it and learn how to actually put it out there, because emotion is what gets people to believe in you and to follow what it is you're doing, to actually look at your business as a real entity and not just as another black box of nothing.
Absolutely. You know, and what I like is you illustrated that there's literally multifacets of emotion, and you really split it up into the individual and the organization. Let's start with the individual. Is it appropriate for an individual as a founder to bring in emotion into their creation of this company or this project? I mean, is that what they should do? Like, should they bring emotion in there, or should they more or less be kind of void of it and more just simple tone, devoid of emotion?
I think at the end of the day, it's a really tough one to say, you know, black, white, yes or no. That's just never the case, especially in business. You're trying to build, well, an extension of ideally yourself, right? You've got a passion for something. You've seen an opportunity. You've seen a gap in a market or whatever it may be. And I feel that one of the biggest reasons a lot of businesses potentially fail or just don't make it to that next stage is that they've tried to pull emotion out of it too soon. I mean, yes, you get to the stage that you want to be a global entity or an organization or a company. There are certain elements of emotion that maybe need to be not removed, but at least sort of controlled and scaled to allow a widely dispersed and multicultural team to actually work together. But as a founder and in those initial days, you absolutely have to bring emotion into it. If I was joining a startup company, if I was joining an environment of 3 or 4 people and I didn't walk into that space and feel the emotion and the tension and the passion, then my immediate question is, well, what am I joining? I mean, if you're not joining a startup for the passion and the vibrant atmosphere, then I just don't see how it's going to get to the next point of success. Because that's
you're so right. You're so right in the sense of, you know, when I hear emotion, the second word I hear is passion. And, you know, there was an article on Founders Live a couple days ago that talked about, is passion actually overrated, and should individuals that look to start companies and startups, should they be around focusing on their passion, or they should be focusing on maybe a better business model or something that makes business sense? And what I came away from that article and thinking is, passion always has to be there. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean it shouldn't be a good business model or a good concept. But if there's no passion there, there is no emotion there. And yes, you're absolutely right. You walk in and you can feel it, and it doesn't feel encouraging. It doesn't pull you in to be a part of something bigger. It just is like, well, what is this? Like, what's going on? So I feel the same way, that I think emotion has to be there. The passion has to be there. The big question that I think is underlying this whole topic is, what happens when those emotions start getting out of whack or taking over to the point where the founder is not effective anymore? And now we're going to go into, how does an individual control their emotions to keep the boat on the right path and not get too, tossed somewhere. Yeah.
So I mean that's an area that obviously we engage quite a lot in that respect from the coaching and mentoring side. So what we do with Rocketeer is it's a wider element of some of our projects are consulting based, others are more training, and then we also do elements which involve coaching and mentoring. And that's obviously the side where you're getting into that emotional control as well. A mentor is really someone that's got that detached visibility on an individual, on a company, on a process, whatever it may be, and to help. Typically, what the biggest piece is, it's to help that individual with the reflection point, because that's, at least from my own perspective, from what I've seen, from what I've been involved in, that reflection part, and it obviously ties very closely with what's called patience. That can be one of the toughest things as a founder, because you've got this incredible passion in your head and you want to get it out there and you want to get it to the next phase. You want to show people just what it is that you can do to change the way things are being done or to bring this product out there. And it's very easy to forget to take a step back and just reflect and try to be objective, because you've got 100 different things going on, you've got 50 balls in the air, and you've got to meet these deadlines, and you've got a couple of those big clients which are essentially keeping you afloat and keeping the lights on. So obviously the first thing that you start to do is just head down and run forward.
Yeah.
And that's definitely where one thing which I've found historically helps is not being a sole founder. Obviously, that's very, very specific, and depending on who you are as an individual or depending on the type of company, that may or may not even be valid. But when you've got 2, 3, or 4, or whatever it may be, a small, closely knit team, that immediately becomes your first point of control. So if one person starts to just lose themselves or get out of whack, whatever it may be, you've got these natural controls around you because you're all working so closely that these people are able to help you take that step away from whatever it is, or just to help stabilize the boat, prevent you from running off on a tangent because of some sort of emotional engagement that's maybe got you just locked into a specific little trench that you can't see the way out of.
Yeah. And is there a frequency that you would suggest? What does Rocketeer find might work? Where is it meeting with a mentor? Like, is it once a week, once a month, once a quarter? What sort of frequency touches make sense when going down this path?
So on the mentor side, it's typically, it's not a weekly thing. I mean, what we say, once or twice a month typically is very common. Sometimes maybe it's once a week in the early phases as you're trying to sort of hone in on what all of the core areas that the individual wants to focus on, and the mentor and the mentee, just getting to know each other and building that relationship. But ideally, it's not something which becomes a cumbersome weekly task or anything like that. This is always about reflection, development, and just helping to zero in that focus, from whether it's because you're looking at someone that's been through these steps before, or it's just a sounding board or whatever it may be. It's always geared towards what does the mentee need, what is it that the mentor is going to push in with whatever they're seeing.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this is always driven by the mentee. That's the type of relationship it is, and that's where the value sits.
Yeah, I found personally it helps a lot to bring in individuals, and I think the question is on this topic, and then we'll kind of move on. But if someone is starting to realize that, okay, I see that I need to bring in some people into my life, like where do they find the appropriate mentors or someone or a few people they can bring into their circle, their close circle of trusted individuals that can help them through this process?
I mean, you hit one of the key points right there, right? Close circle, trust, and that's why speak to them about, have you considered a mentor, or do you have someone? A lot of people sort of say, I thought about it, but I don't really know, and they've just dropped it again and moved on. It's because it's an incredibly intimate thing to do, right? To have a mentor. It is a very, very close, trusted personal relationship, and people maybe feel that they don't quite have the right person in their network. But I think what I've found is most common is that people just seem sometimes afraid to ask. So maybe you've got a few people in that network, or what's more likely, incredibly likely for pretty much everyone, that maybe you don't know them yourself, but you definitely know someone that will know the person that could be a great mentor for you. And all you have to do is ask. But that's obviously, again, it's a tough thing to do as a human being, to admit you don't have all the answers, and to sort of reach out and ask for help is very tough for most people to do. But the other side is, again, if you feel like you don't know that person, exactly that. How do you meet the person? Because you can go out and you can network, but where should you network? Who are the right people to network with? Should it be industry specific? But then you start to think, well, that's just all corporate people. I don't want a corporate mentor. I want someone that gets the startup vibe. And it just becomes another sort of black hole of crap. Now I've got all this stuff I've got to do, and I've still got to focus on the business and everything else. So it's it's a very tough one to do, because if you don't have the natural people that almost sort of just scream mentor to you, then where do you start, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think you mentioned a few things, and really, it's if you don't have someone in your inner circle currently that you could maybe more closely work with as a mentor, it's putting yourself in those environments that you meet new people, and it becomes more. You got to be intent. There's got to be intention put into finding this person. I mean, just like you put intention into innovating around your business or moving it to the next level, one of those marks has to be find key individual, find mentor, and it probably has to be that specific. But then you start putting yourself in the environments such as networking events or more associated corporate, if there's a couple companies that you feel that you would want to find someone in that direction. I think it's just more putting intention around there. At some point, the individual will come into your life, and then it's a matter of having that. It is a conversation. It's not easy, but reaching out and asking, "Hey, I need some help. I want to move forward in my company, in my life. Would you be the person that I could bring alongside and help through a mentorship?" And I think one of the questions that really surprises me, and I just thought about it when you're talking about it, is why do you think it's so hard for us to ask for help?
From my own perspective, I think it's just a matter of it's telling someone other than yourself that you don't have the answers. I think that's I remember I've read multiple sort of different blogs and research papers and things like that, and even statistically, one of the least used sort of phrases in the English language is "I don't know," because as a person, we just have this, whether it's inherent or subconscious or where it sits in the psyche, but we like to have the answers. We like to show those around us that we have knowledge and information, and we're valuable in that respect. And to say "I don't know" or to ask for help is to exactly that. It's to give up control, to admit that you maybe don't have all the answers, and it's just a very, very tough thing to do.
Yeah.
One of the great things, and this is what I love about Founders Live as well, is that this is an environment filled with people that have been through this phase, that are in this phase, that are, for whatever reason, they're hunting information, they're hunting people. I mean, this is an incredibly great forum to ask these types of questions. So I hope it's something that you can just continue to build and get more and more people sharing these experiences, because it's such an important thing for business as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of the reason why we started it. Was there, I personally hadn't found especially online, but an environment that not only it was equally comfortable to ask questions, but equally encouraging to be around the people that are on the platform. And so that's a really cool aspect of Founders Live, which is you both have information or help seeking, but also help providing. And internally we just try to post things every day that add value to entrepreneurs and have conversations like this. And over time, I feel that I hope at least that there can be more. It can become more comfortable to reach out, message someone, and say, "Hey, I noticed that you've worked in this industry for 5 or 10 years. I have some questions," or "I don't know." And actually, come to think of it, it's like if you are a founder of a company and in an industry, and you come out and say, "I don't know XYZ about this industry," or "I don't know where I'm going," that on the surface feels very risky and feels you feel like, well, why am I a founder in this if I don't know what I'm doing? But that's the point. The point is part of being a founder is a journey of exploration, is a discovery and creativity. That's like that's what it's all about. And I think when you look at any, I mean, do you think that Airbnb founders knew a ton about hospitality when they started Airbnb? I
No,
don't think
absolutely
so.
not.
I don't think so. I don't think, like I just had this conversation the other day. The the expert at the time, so let's say 8, 10 years ago, the time, if someone as an expert in the hospitality industry came in and looked at them, they probably would have said, "No, this ain't gonna work. Like you guys don't know what
Exactly
you're doing."
that.
And those individuals were able to say, I don't know if they said this, but my guess is they were able to come in and say, "We have a feeling that this is a huge opportunity. We are going to go against the grain in hospitality, but we don't know." They didn't probably know a ton about the regulations and about what the full aspect of the hospitality industry is. You know what they said is, "We see a huge trend. We're going to open this thing up. We're going to allow people to open up their homes and basically offer that to strangers to pay for." And and I think I look at them and I say, they at least embraced the feeling of not knowing, and they might have, I don't know specifically their story, but they might have brought in individuals and basically said, "Hey, we don't know jack about the hospitality industry, but can you help us?" And I think that having that sort of appreciation for actually having no idea or saying "I don't know" opens you up to huge possibilities and opportunities to bring in individuals that maybe know more than you, that can help you along the process. And that's just one example.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you look that whole space. I mean, Uber and Lyft, right? People are still sitting there saying, "Oh, you can't do it," and they're cutting down access to various states or countries. But it's a success. So, no, it's fantastic.
Exactly. So let's actually. I would like to move on to you. You mentioned emotion in the organization, and what exactly does that mean and look like?
Yeah. So that, from my perspective, that's the more interesting part when you start to look at emotion, because that's where really you start to look at things like emotional intelligence, behavioral science, how that's being applied, the way that consumers are starting to behave, and how that is all changing, the way that we look at companies from a personal perspective when we're deciding where we want to work. I mean, people aren't going out there anymore and saying, "I want to buy product X because the description says it's great." I mean, people are looking for a product which has a story behind it. It's the company is supporting something. It's engaged in a community or whatever it may be. People are looking at experiences behind that story as well. It's not just a simple black box function product, a scientific output that you're buying. That day has changed. I mean, we've still got the big corporations that will go through the procurement department and they'll buy based on spreadsheet mentality, but that's not to say that all these new companies that are starting are going to do the same thing. We've seen, as you just said, Airbnb. You look at guys like Uber. You look at all these things that are changing the way that we behave and interact. This is also impacting the way that we look at organizations, and it's no longer just I want that faceless entity. People want something with emotion. They want something that they can identify with, something that they can believe in. There's so much more to it, and that's where that organizational emotion comes in. When you're a founder, it's easy because your emotion is the company's emotion. Someone comes in and they see you and they feel it, and that's it. But as you start to grow, as you start to bring in a team, as you start to build departments, whatever it may be, around that organization, it becomes incredibly important to how do you sustain that mentality, that feeling, that culture, the emotion that the organization has got. I mean, you walk into Airbnb's office in San Francisco, for example, and you actually still feel that initial sort of unknown. The whole thing is, I'm not sure if you've read anything about their office or been there at any point, but it's all sort of designed as different rooms
Yeah.
from different countries, right?
Right.
So as you walk around, it's like, well, now I'm at an Airbnb in Istanbul, or now I'm in Oslo, or whatever it may be. And that is just feeding through that emotion every day and how people feel when they get into the office. You're not walking in and immediately your head is dropping into a a cubicle and you're stuck on sort of XYZ repeat for 8 hours, and then you get up and you leave. It's,
Yeah.
you know, you're walking in and you've got freedom, you've got space around you. That's what drives creativity. That's what drives cohesion in teams. I mean, there are so many benefits to having an emotion in an organization, and it really just becomes a matter of, you know, what do you want yours to be, and how do you sustain that?
Right.
Because
And
at
is it
that
a
point
matter
of
of
saying, you
is
know,
it a
we
matter
leave
of
at the door,
sitting
just doesn't
down?
help.
Is it a matter of sitting down and actually writing out, yeah, what is the emotion of this company? What do we want it to feel like? Like how does a founding group go from starting the company in the product or what they're building to finding that emotional base that they want to build off of?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely exercises that you can run through to help reinforce it. I mean, like you said, writing it down, sort of having it reinforced in that respect, visually throughout the location, that's always a strong play, because as humans, we're so subconscious, we don't even realize such a large portion of the information that we retain just sits sort of latent in our heads. It's not there until suddenly something triggers. You know, selective focus, for example, is a big piece. The amount of times that you've maybe taken the same drive home, and for whatever reason, you know, that third billboard from Verizon registers today, but you've never seen it before.
Mhm.
Someone else may have seen that every day, but you know, that's all part of how we behave and interact as humans. So there are so many different ways you can leverage that. But obviously, having a really unified approach to it from a leadership perspective, from a founding perspective, that is probably the most important piece, because if you don't know and you're not agreed on it, then how do you expect anyone else coming in to pick up and reinforce those same vibes if you're not sort of embodying them and bringing them out there from day one?
Yeah, absolutely. Is there an example, and maybe let's go outside of Airbnb and Uber. Is there an example that you can point to of a company, possibly a consumer brand, that you feel has really nailed the emotional intelligence aspects of their experience?
So there's a couple. One that I would highlight is Etsy. If you're familiar with that platform,
Yep.
one of the reasons why Etsy's got such a great sort of community around it is because everything that you're getting through Etsy, you're engaging directly with the person that's made these products, right? So if you want to buy a leather-bound notebook, then maybe you're getting it from Amy in Lithuania, or whatever it is. But that communication that's going back and forth, that is between you and the person on the other end that's actually sitting there making the product. So you've been looking around, you've seen all these different images, and you're speaking with the creator of the product. You're directly linked in. So any reviews that you're making are going directly to them, and all these engagements, you know, right away you feel as if you're buying something from a local community. You're almost going back to that medieval sort of village feel where everything is personal in the interaction, despite the
Yeah.
fact that you're doing it through an online interface. But it's just breaking down those borders and taking things a step closer, which is, again, as people, we like to feel that connection. We like to have that knowledge that we've supported someone, we've done something positive. I mean, that's a huge piece, and that's a platform that enables it. Again, really, really simple, but people just cotton onto it without maybe even realizing they're doing it. Another one, which I found, this is one sort of from personal experience a couple of years ago. It's a company called Kaufman Mercantile, which are actually out of the US and they're based in Denver originally. But they're selling all sorts of different sort of products online, some of which is like bath accessories. So I bought this shower nail brush, and the story behind the product was it was produced by a blind guy in Sweden who sat in his cabin and took the horse bristles and put them into the wooden block for the brush and did all of that himself. And
Wow.
then they just managed the distribution of it. And the second I read that little story, you just thought, damn, that is a really cool story behind the product. At the end of the day, I never even went a step further to validate if it was actually true or not, or if it was just a great marketing ploy.
Yeah.
But the fact was, it immediately hits you on an emotional level, and it's personable. And for most people, that is the kind of detail that you just think, you know what, that's a really cool story behind a product. That's something that gets you hooked in, versus just running through Walgreens or Boots or whatever it is that we're using, depending on the countries we're living in, and picking stuff up off the shelves.
Wow, yeah, no, that is an amazing story, and it's it's the lesson for founders is to bring out, be truthful, but bring out the story that's behind your product and your experience, and maybe even how you came to creating this company, or the reasons why, the experiences the customer has around your product. That takes time, it takes effort, but absolutely you're right. As consumers, we are gravitating towards a deeper connection. We want a deeper connection. We want a purpose, and we want to interact and use products that actually bring emotion to us, not just a bland experience. So I think that that's a really cool. I really appreciate that. Just that story of, I can imagine that old man, just building that brush, and that's crazy. But
yeah, exactly. It's those little details, and that's what sets you apart, and that's what gets people to see it, recognize it, remember it, engage. And it doesn't have to be complex, right? It can be something as simple as 3 lines on a product description, or an image that supports the story, or that place you were walking when you had the idea for the business, whatever it may be. There are so many ways to tie in those emotional elements.
That's great. Well, we are out of time. We're about 30 minutes in, and we usually run about 30 minutes for this show. So we're out of time for today. But this is the Founders ROC. I want to thank Glenn, and Glenn and Rocketeer. So you can find Rocketeer at ROCETEER.com. And they do some amazing things. Definitely check them out. And we will be back next week, and look forward to that on Founders Live. If you're not on Founders Live and you're seeing this video in any other distribution or social feed or article, you got to check out Founders Live. That's Founders, FOUNDERLIVE.com. Founders Live. It's great if you're an entrepreneur anywhere in the world. You got to jump on there. We got a lot of cool stuff going on. So until next week, I will see you later, Glenn.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick. Take it easy.
Enjoy.
Bye.